Hello and welcome to this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me, where we focus less on the dis and more on the ability of what we can do. Join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, live on www.letgoradio.net and on Facebook Live, where I always say, if you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. What's up, everybody out there in Radio Land on www.letgoradio.net and on Facebook Live? It is Wednesday. It is June 9th, 2021, as June continues to fly by, and unfortunately, I don't. I sit where I am and remain where I roll. It's D to the J with a roll away for My CP Does Not Define Me, episode 56. I can't believe it. Man, we're at an even number. And I have got a guest today. I put the flyer out a couple days ago. You guys are in for a great one. This guy here, really, he's a jack of all trades. He's done a little bit of everything. I love him to death. Great friend. He's known me since I was 22 years old. I was saying earlier, man, I got food in the refrigerator older than that now. How in the world did we go back to 22 years? Great day. Like, it's amazing to me. But I'd like to welcome everybody to the show as you come in. Again, we're live on www.letgoradio.net, and we are affiliated with Kelly's Choice, Inc. So, Cindy, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in. Please feel free to leave questions, comments, and concerns as we go through today's show. Brian, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. So glad you were able to take time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Hey, it's great to be here, DJ, and always good to catch up with you and get to meet a few of your listeners here today. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
I tell you. So, all right, Brian, I'm gonna put you in the driver's seat now, if I can. I think you're in the passenger seat actually, but we'll just go with it. Would you do us a favor and just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, kind of the give us an all-around piece of what Brian is actually all about.
Yeah, well, that might be complicated, but I'll keep it as simple as I can. So, my name is Brian Menninger. My family and I, Victoria is my wife and my 4 daughters, and recently a new son-in-law. We live in Central Virginia, kind of right smack dab in the middle of the state. And my youngest just graduated from high school, and so we're kind of moving into empty nest stage of life, and that's how I've known DJ for so long, because I'm getting older too. But life and mission. I'm a purpose, faith-driven entrepreneur, and I love building things. I love building, tree houses and forts. I'm actually getting a chance to build a tree house right now with our company. Which I haven't ever done in 25 years of construction, but also get to build our team, build the business, build people's lives. And so I love taking raw materials, putting them together and seeing something come out of it. And so anyway, so yeah, that's a real brief bit about me. Yeah. There we go. What do you want to piggyback on there, DJ?
I kind of want to go over just a couple things. Now you're with Bear Creek, but before we get there, where did your passion come from? Because in your bio it said you love to build things, and you've said I love building tree houses and putting things together. But you've been putting things together for a long time, relationships and things like that, and you've been mentoring people. Gosh, again, you mentored me when I was back in Cornerstone at 22 years of age. How did you get into the path that you're in right now, and kind of just talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think paths are a journey. There's lots of little things along the way that guide us to where we are. But I think a lot of it is just really, doing the introspective work to really understand who God created us to be and embracing that. And I have loved to build things as long as I can remember. I don't even really remember when I started building things. My joke about the tree house, is, I was building tree houses in the woods behind our house when I was a kid, building bicycle tracks and those kinds of things. I've always liked creating and putting things together. And so, and I've always had a a passion to help people and to serve and to serve my community and to care and to love people. And through the years, those two things have kind of steadily come together in different ways. And never really imagined that I'd be where I am doing what I'm doing today. But I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. And so, yeah, that's you mentioned the company that Victoria and I co-founded and run, which is Bear Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the primary outlet where I get to express that today. And so, yeah.
Now we were talking a little bit before the show, and I said, you've worked with some people that are able-bodied, you worked with some people with disabilities, and in my eyes, you've been a mentor of people for a long time, as long as I've known you, from our days at Cornerstone to when I moved and really didn't want to, and the whole, I was going through the struggles of, what am I going to do now? I do you feel that you're able to do that now more with Bear Creek, because you're still doing what you're passionate about, and you're still able to put things together?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, part of it is that through the years, as I've gotten a better understanding of who I am and what, not only what I enjoy, but what I'm good at, I've been able to focus on those things more and more, and less on the things that maybe I'm not so good at. And that has allowed me to, I believe, have a greater impact and get greater results. And so, so yeah, it's definitely been a refining process of trimming things away and focusing in more and more on the things that I love to do, that I feel like God created me for, that God's given me purpose for, and that He's also equipped me and created me to be able to do.
Can you maybe describe the moment, and I don't know if it's kind of an moment where it's just, it finally fit. Did you go through the point of, when is it going to get to be, I feel like where I'm supposed to be? Because I know you went through Home Innovations, and you were a pastor, and you've done, all these different things, and you're really, a lover of God, and you're a warrior that believes in people and tries to show their strength. Did you have that moment of, is this where I'm supposed to be? And when did you find that peace that, okay, you've always thanked God for everything, because that's the type of person that you are. But when did you find that peace and say, okay, I really feel like this is where I'm supposed to be?
I'd say it was more like I woke up one day and, oh my word, look where I am. And part of that is because the journey here has been marked with a lot of struggle and a lot of failure. And so those experiences and those seasons have moved me, directed me, closed doors, helped me understand where I'm not supposed to be.
Wow.
And so those are the things that have oftentimes moved me to it. The honest truth is that when Victoria and I founded Bear Creek 5 years ago, we never dreamed that this would be the result, but it became the opportunity. And, Victoria likes to say, we follow breadcrumbs. We just kind of see what's right in front of us, and we kind of move after the next thing. And certainly we have visions and plans, and we do those kinds of things, but a lot of times it's just, okay, what's the opportunity in front of us? And do we take it or do we not? Do we move? Where do we move? And yeah, the early stages of Bear Creek were really just about, what was the next opportunity, and
Right.
we needed income, and we needed to solve some things financially in our family, and the opportunity was there, and so we took it. And then over time, it just has evolved and to become where we are today.
Back in our early friendship, you were always a builder. I remember, now I'm gonna go back down memory lane for the guys here listening on Let Go and Live on Facebook. I remember when we went to church together, and I was in our life group, which is, the group of guys that get together every Wednesday night or Thursday night, whenever it was. And I was having trouble with my footrest. My footrest were touching the ground. And I was trying to figure out how can I press up and get dressed the right way. And Brian actually took a team of guys. It was him, and I believe Thomas was in on it, and Bryn was in on it, and John was in on it. And you took this wooden platform box and you built it. And you built it, but the cool thing about it is you fit it and it to where it slid under my footrest, and I still to this day have that box and have used it in multiple areas. But one of the reasons I want to talk about that box as part of this journey is everybody signed it. And I remember going through life like trying to, you have a piece like that and something that was built with your own two hands, and you say, this is something that I will always remember because it helped me through the tough times. You know, when stuff breaks, you have to build it, you have to weld it, you have to fix it, you have to re-put it together. And sometimes it breaks in many pieces. And I remember asking you questions like, where do I go from here? I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know really what I was good at talking to people, but I couldn't find my way to, and I was always like frustrated, like I'm not at the place I'm supposed to be. And the one thing you always said to me is, you're good at making people laugh, you know, use your voice because that's what you have. Your voice is going to be heard, it needs to be heard, and you need to get it out there. And I remember those moments. Like, it's so awesome just to reflect on that and just go to that little box that you built and to have, goodness, at that time 15 signatures on them, and some of them have faded, but you can still see some of the signatures. And I'm like, that's life. You know, it's built step by step by step, and it is a journey. So that was powerful. That was just, I remember
That's cool that you still have that. And yeah, it is cool to be here because yeah, I remember those days of thinking, DJ's going to get to a point where he's kind of refined that voice, and he's going to use that voice. And but I always remember wherever you went with us, you always attracted a crowd around your chair because you were entertaining everybody that was there, and you kept all of us in stitches. And I was just like, man, you got to be a DJ. Aside from your name, you got to be on the radio. You got to be talking something, And so, but I also have seen how you've grown up, and now you're able to kind of harness that ability in a way that you couldn't 20 years ago. And so, yeah, no, it's exciting to be here because of having known that journey.
So we've got a question from Nikki, and she asked about Bear Creek. She says, is Bear Creek a place for people with disabilities? Can you explain just a little bit about what Bear Creek is and what it does?
Yeah, so Bear Creek is a place for anyone. We are a construction company, so that does affect what we can and can't do. And so we work within that. But what we try to do is find ways to break the complexities of building a project down into little pieces that anybody can contribute. And whether that's because they, maybe they have some sort of physical challenge, or maybe it's because they never learned a skill before. So we have people come to us, for example, that don't even know how to read a tape measure. And so we always have holes to dig. So they dig holes while we teach them to use a tape measure, and then they can do something else. And so we have a shop which allows us to have people work that maybe couldn't handle the physical demands of a job site. I'll use an example. We have a team member right now who battled cancer when he was in middle school. It left him with an issue with his balance. And so he went through the same program you did at Woodrow Wilson, DJ, and graduated from there, couldn't find a job. His DARS counselor knew of us, connected us with him. We initially tried on the job site. He was struggling. And so then we were like, well, let's see what he can do in the shop where everything's flat. And he does great, and he has some specific things that he does. He comes in, a few days every week, and specifically, he creates a bench out of remnant lumber that we use as a gift to our customers and to nonprofits that are fundraising and so forth. And we call it Jacob's Bench. And so that's one of the things that he does. But we currently have, we've continued to work with Woodrow Wilson. We have carpentry interns from them that come to us. We're getting ready to move facilities, and when we move facility, we will no longer be on our offices will no longer be on the third floor with no elevator. And so we have already been talking to Woodrow about having additional interns in our office, because we will be accessible. We've not been accessible to this point. And so it's a long-winded answer to the question, but we are working to find ways to make our industry accessible to people that maybe never considered it in the past, because it is a high-demand industry. There is a huge need for people and work to get done in construction, and therefore wages are climbing and the demand is climbing, and we need to find ways to give people entry to this industry that maybe couldn't in the past.
That's actually a great answer to the question, Brian. Thank you, because that's really well put. And I love, you've always been able to see, it's not about what a person can't do. It's about what a person can do. And that to me this is so awesome, to give people an opportunity to try. I mean, because the least you can do is go out there and do your best. And if you do your best and you work with it, you're going to get there. And now I see why it's more about, train, because your slogan said part of building a team is we build people. And I understand more now about that slogan, because I love it. I'm like, man, I got to use that. That's just, but when you put it into context and you see what your company is doing, to have Jacob's Bench and to be able to give and donate, and because effectively what you're doing is the same thing here. You're reaching people that want to learn, and you're giving them an opportunity to say, well, if this doesn't work, let's try here. If this doesn't work, let's try here. So you're not trying to put a peg into a square hole. You're finding what best fits them, and I love that. I think that's pretty amazing, really. I'm like, I'm going back to Waynesboro like tomorrow.
I've done told you a few times, but anyway. But we were talking before we got on the air a little bit, DJ, that we all face different obstacles.
Yeah.
Life throws us curveballs. 11 years ago, the curveball I was facing was that the industry that I was in construction was being absolutely decimated by the housing crisis of the Great Recession. And I lost, our first business in bankruptcy. I ended up in, personal bankruptcy. We lost everything financially that we had. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, that's because a bunch of Wall Street crooks were doing stuff they weren't supposed to do and messed up my life and my family. But at the end of the day, that doesn't accomplish anything. The reality is I have control over my response. I don't have control over what happens to me, the obstacle in my way, but I have a control over my response. And my response is I'm taking what I learned during that experience and I'm using it today. And I'm 100% convinced that the reason we have been able to navigate the uncertain difficulties of the pandemic as it has affected our business over the last year is because of what we learned 10 years ago when it didn't work. And so that obstacle does not define me anymore. But the skills I learned from dealing with it are part of what it takes to be successful today.
That is. Whew. I told y'all this was going to be a powerful.
I can get fired up. I can.
I
I used to be a preacher, so I can preach. I'm gonna try not to preach at your
but
listeners. But I think
it's
there's a
just, I
question on
mean,
the screen, but I don't have my glasses, so I can't
yeah.
read it. See if I can tell you what it is.
And you've kind of mentioned this a little bit, but um, Sh- Siobhan is so awesome. She says, "Hi, you both look great. Is this a vocational facility to teach persons with disabilities life skills?" And you kind of mentioned that, and in a way, it is based on what they want to do in construction. Am I right in saying that?
Well, I would actually say no because we take a very different approach. So there's nothing wrong with vocational facilities and what they do, but what we have chosen to do is use the workplace and economics and business to provide something. And so I'll give a good example. So vocational schools you pay to attend. And that's not necessarily practical for everybody. And it also
Mm-hmm.
means you're going to school and you're not working and you're not getting paid. And some people need to get paid. So what we're trying to do is find a way to provide an opportunity where people can contribute in a way that there is economic value to what they contribute so that they can get paid while they learn. And so if that means they're digging a hole while they learn to read a tape measure, they get a paycheck. And so it makes it approachable and manageable for people that wouldn't otherwise. And so we work with some vocational facilities, and we definitely teach. You know, this is a learning environment. This is a growth environment. But see, some of the challenges or the obstacles that people face when they come here, you know, could be they don't have a car. In our world, it's very hard to get a job without transportation, and without transportation, it's hard to get a job. It's hard to get a job to get a car, and you just get stuck, and then you can't get housing. And
Right.
so we have a lot of people that live close to our shop, and we run vehicles from our shop to every job site every day. And so if somebody, as long as somebody can get to our shop, they can get to the job site. So they don't have to have a car. I had a guy that ran public transportation and walked 2 miles every morning to get to work for about a year, and now he's got a vehicle, he's got his license, he's building his life, you know. And so we can't do it all for people, but we certainly can help give them the opportunity. And so I see questions coming in, so you'll have to help me with those.
Woo, man! These comments are woo. um, what if you are well established in your disability and skill? You have a need to redefine what you can do. How you do it because of the progression of your disability? That's a great question. That's a great question. So what Crystal's saying is,
Explain that one to me a little bit more.
so what if you are well established in your disability and skills you have, but you need to redefine what you can do? So you're basically maybe not necessarily trying to restart, but kind of edge up a little bit, or get a little bit better in what you're doing. Is it kind of, is there like a training course that you offer, or is it all on the job site type stuff?
Oh, when I can see this question here, it says because of the progression of a disability. So
Right.
maybe it's because the limitations are getting greater.
Right.
Um, okay. Well, look, I'm getting older. I can't physically do what I used to do. So what I do today is an evolution. So for example, I used to do a lot of physical work on the job sites. I still do some of that. I'm actually doing that today.
Mhm.
However, my primary focus now when I go on a job site is not being the strongest guy doing the most work. My focus is on teaching the skills and experience that I have learned to somebody else so they can do it. So so physically, I'm still in good shape, but I can't do what I once did. But
Right.
mentally, there's things I know that I did not know 15 years ago when I was a lot younger and stronger. And so I think when, you know, our bodies change and our physical parameters that we live within start changing, we have to remember that our experience, that we're gaining experience. And so there's other things that we can focus on that we're probably better at. that maybe we weren't earlier. And so I think we just have to have a lot of awareness
Yeah.
of who we are, what our strengths are, and how we focus on the things that are not being limited as other limitations increase or change.
So to kind of, Crystal, just to help out a little bit. So it's not so much what you can't do because of the progression. What they're looking at is what you can do with what you have. And even if you redefine some of the skills that you had before, even if you have to do them differently, you can find a way to do it. That's what I love this, because this is turning into this whole thing now that I didn't even. God is awesome. I didn't even see this coming, and I'm like, wow. Now we're, you know, let me ask you this, Brian. When did you go, wow, the potential of this is almost limitless because of what you're doing for people and the opportunities that people are getting to come and learn, whether they can read a tape measure, whether they can't, wherever they start. You know, just like the guy with balance that you talked about, where he was having trouble with balance on the job site, but you said, okay, well, let's try an area that's flat, and he came in the office and started making the benches and does the thing every day. When did you realize the potential of what this has and how big this actually is?
Well, you know, I've always been a big dreamer, so I've had big dreams for a lot of years. But there's been points where those dreams have felt pretty dead, and that's why I said earlier it was kind of like I woke up one day and look at where I am, because 5 years ago this all seemed impossible to me.
Mm.
And even when we started this company, you know, I had these kind of visions and dreams for our first company, but when it failed, it seemed like a lot of that went away. And when we started this, we really didn't we were doing a different type of work in a different industry with different even vision and focus. And there's been like two or three pivots along the way to bring us where we are. And so um, yeah, it's but to see down the road now, I think, you know, I want what we do, the work we do. I want a vision that's bigger than me. See, in Hebrews 11, in, you know, where it talks about the people of faith, it says that they saw things that they never experienced. It said, like, Abraham held on to promises that were bigger than him, that were further down the road than him, that would only be realized by his children and his children's children. Like, I want to
Mm.
chase a vision and dream from God that's so much bigger than me, that it's going to take more than my lifetime, and it's going to be more than I can ever do. And that's the only thing I think is worth living for, you know. And I believe God wants to do that for all of us, you know. And so in terms of how we've gotten here, I don't know if it was Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, you know, it said basically you can have everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want.
Mm.
And the longer I live, the more I realize that's true. The more I focus on myself and worry about myself, the less I accomplish, and the more I just help other people, the more I somehow accomplish. And it's just one of these great paradoxes of the way God created things in life. You know, yeah, you can get a lot by being selfish, but you can't get the things that really matter. You know, you might get money, but you won't get peace, you won't get satisfaction, you won't get purpose, you won't
Woo.
get fulfillment, you won't get love, you know. So anyway, all right, I'll stop preaching.
No, again, guys, I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, but the goosebumps, I gotta tell you. Shayna, I do a show with Shayna as well on Tuesdays, and she's like my sister. I just want to read her comment here, and it's because it's so powerful. Wow, a lot of things we dream of, and it seems impossible, but if you believe and never give up, you will reach those dreams, those promises. It's amazing to hear you talking about what you want to do, even where you are right now, that you want to, you know, that have it that's bigger than you, you know. And the amazing thing is, and kind of going off of this just a little bit, when I started, you know, when we were, you know, hanging out and we were friends and everything, I never saw myself where I am now. And I always wanted to get where I wasn't. Like, I wanted to get to the point of, when am I going to get here? And until I learned to kind of live in the moment that I was in, because you said when your other business failed, I don't think your other business failed at all. I don't think anything you've done, you and Tori have done, and your family has done, is a failure. I don't. I think it is a building block or a process of you take what you learn from something that didn't go the way you wanted it, and God molded it, and He just rolled that thing, and it's like I look at it now, I'm going, "Are you serious, dude?" Like the last 2 minutes that you were just speaking,
Yeah.
the last 2 minutes you were
Yeah.
just speaking, I'm going, there it is. He pulled it. That's where, because I knew where you were going to go. Like,
Well, well, see, here's the thing, DJ. Yeah, it was a failure because maybe it ended. It was a failure as a business because that
mm,
business came to an
right.
end. But it was not the end of my life.
Mm,
And I had other failures. As far as I'm concerned, my church planning, season was not something I consider that I was successful at, and that was another kind of failure in the process. But but my life did not end with that, and so
mm,
the journey continues. And so the only ultimate failure is quitting and trying. Now I want to dial something back just to make sure nobody misunderstands me about dreams. you know Dreaming without action is hallucination, and I don't want to
woo!
hallucinate, I want to dream. And so I'm not talking about like sitting around and thinking like, oh, someday I dream of being this. I'm talking about getting your butt to work because you can see where you're going.
Get it?
And so anyway, just so I'm not misunderstood, like God does his part, we do our part, we work together. This is a team. And
Mm,
God moves in miraculous ways, but we've got to take action too. God's given us a facility for our business right now that is an absolute miracle, and I prayed and he moved a mountain out of our way, but I also, continued to every day, I walked around that building. I prayed. I built a relationship with the owner of the building so that when the opportunity was right, I was the one he called. We did what we built a relationship. We took action, and we prayed and we believed God for the miracles. And so anyway, um, just to make sure I'm clear.
no, I love that because on last week's show I said faith without works is dead. Okay, there, and I'm not sure of the scripture. I know but it also says God helps those who helps themselves.
It doesn't
Okay,
say that. It doesn't say that. That's not in the scripture. That's like sorry, I don't mean to but
no,
like
no, no,
that's
no.
like one of the, but the principle is true. The principle, but the thing is that God, it also says that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So God moves in spite of us. He's looking for someone that wants to join him. And when we
Right,
join him in what he's doing by our action, by our works that demonstrates our faith, then we get to be a part of it. Look, God's going to create something amazing with Bear Creek, whether I'm in it or not. And so
right.
it's really a matter of whether I'm going to play my role and whether I jump in or whatever. Um, but yes, there's got to be action.
And
Without it,
and
we
and I
don't see anything happen.
and I think I know. See, but you allowed, and a lot of people don't do this when they see a quote unquote failure or something doesn't go right, they stop. But see, you allowed God to pull you through the muck and the mess and the hard and the bull and the you got to dig. I mean, this is. I mean, God is tempering you, Brian. This is like I'm sitting here going, I'm mind blown because I knew Brian of DJ 22-year-old, and I'm like, dude, this guy, seriously. And I'm looking at me going 39, going, whoa, it's a total difference. Like he's pulled you through the temperament that you have now, and the temper that he's done for you, and everything that you went through has made you so much stronger. It's amazing. I mean, you and your wife and your family.
Look, it's not been fun, and we all pray for God to bless us. But I can tell you, I've never grown in the blessing. I appreciate the blessing. I'm grateful for the blessing, but it's in the fire, it's in the struggle when we grow, and when we, when God refines us, and he purifies our hearts, and
Mm,
he weeds things out that needs to go. And it's in those challenges, it's in those difficulties. And as far as not quitting, look, I did quit a lot. We're talking a journey, from the closing of Bear Creek, and struggling through the pastoring, to the founding of Bear Creek. It was almost 7 years, and there were a lot of points in there where I did quit,
yeah, yeah.
um,
But
but
God
I
got
got to
you
a
to it.
point where I was so dissatisfied.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, God never left me, you know, but
Hmm.
but I had to get to a point where I was so dissatisfied with where I was that I was willing to start moving again. And
Hmm.
and then when we started moving, then we started seeing what God could do. Um, but um, but yeah, I understand it's tough. It's hard. There's struggles. There's lots of points where you just want to quit. You just want to throw in the towel and be done.
I love the fact that God can use everything in our life. It doesn't matter what it is to get us in the right direction again. We could there were times I was so mad, and I'm like, how could this happen? And I look at it now, and I'm like, man, you talking about, I'll stop preaching, but man, this is real stuff. When you get into this is what life is about. Because you mentioned a journey, and everybody has their own. Um, and I love how Brian said something is going to happen with Bear Creek is going to succeed and build whether I'm in it or not. I mean, that's it's God's vision is in this, man, and you can see that He's all over it, because the ability to bring people in and to show them that it is possible, that they're not just out there to be a placeholder. So many people with disabilities think, I just want to drive. I just want to get that job. I just want to get that one foot in the door. And I think, a matter of fact, I don't want to sound cocky, but I know Bear Creek is the option for that. And I'm sitting here, I'm listening to the words that I'm speaking, and my mind's going, oh boy, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car. Like, 'cause it's just, I mean,
You
we
doing you doing great and accomplishing great things right where you are, brother.
yeah, I love the fact that this has exploded into this big vision, and God has His hand in all of it. It's so amazing to see the success after what you've been through, and talking about the journey itself. It is hard. I mean, it's but to go through, and I want to say this. That's it. You have to come to the realization when things need to change, you change them. In do what has to be done, no matter how hard things get or life gets for us. And I think your ability, it's not just about what Brian does, it's about what you see in your team. I used to ask you this question: how do you see this? I don't get it, Brian. I don't understand. And I remember you said you have to look at the big picture. 22 years ago, I'm sitting in Cornerstone. I'm like, this dude's lost his mind. I don't know, because I'm
Probably
like,
right.
but you know what? To go through it and to look at the growth, we are growing and moving as people all the time. As children of God, we don't stay stagnant. You can get stagnant for a little bit. It can happen, but if you believe and you show your faith, and you allow Him to mold you and lead you in the right direction, He's going to give you what you need to get you through. And that's the piece of this journey that I'm grabbing. And it's amazing to hear you talk about, yeah, it was hard. Yes, home innovations did fail. To go from home innovations to Bear Creek, to all of this that you went through, and you're here now, and the success is just, and you wake up one day and you say, how in the world did this, that aha moment? That's amazing, Brian. I'm so happy you're able to share this, because I did not expect this to
Well,
happen.
let me let me turn it on. We'll trust our relationship here a second. So, you spent some years struggling too, and here you are today. So, what were the moments of pivot in your journey?
I think the big one is you have to see it. 1,000 people can tell you the direction, but you have to see it. You have to seek what you really want, and you have to find it. It's not a case of, it's not going to be handed to you. You got to work for it. Um, I don't have to be the center of the room now. Before, I was all about being the center of the room. Make people like me. Come to me. I'll make you laugh. Now it's not. I'm going to sit there, smile a little bit, turn my head, adjust my tie, see what happens. It's about reaching. I understand now that it's not about 451,000 people. It starts with one. It starts with one. And I had to come to that degree, because when I first started this thing, I was about numbers, money, and people. And it just, you kind of go, wait a minute, I'm not getting the views I'm getting. And somebody pointed it out to me. They said, Ms. Winnie said this. She said, are you at least helping one person? Then you're doing your job. And I kind of went, okay, there's the realization right there. If you start with one, it's not about how big the room is. It's about, are you doing your absolute best and giving everything you've got, no matter what your journey is, whether it's martial arts, whether it's radio broadcasting, whether it's Bear Creek, whether it's planting a garden. Are you giving everything you've got in the moments that you're in? And does God say, are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing it for me? What are you truly doing? What is your message really about? That's the moment that when I realized it's not about the numbers, and people started messaging me to be on my show and to can I get on your show and share my story? Yes, because it's about your journey. It's about, this isn't about me. This is not about me. I am just a piece of the puzzle that God has the pieces for. And this is my buddy right here. Faith in what God can do through you is such an amazing and important part. I just, I guess for me to see, I never saw myself as a leader, but somebody told me, and I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Andrea in our group. She said, the fact that you don't see yourself as a leader and you're not cocky and you're not arrogant means you are one. You were born to be this. And I'm like, how do you see that? I'm like, I don't see it. And God showed me there's a humbleness there. It's the people that see it sometimes and go, I was born to be this. And you're going, back up a little bit. You're really not. So it's amazing to me what God has shown me through not 560,000 people, but 2 or 3 or 6 or 10. And it just continues to grow and to be an amazing piece of the journey. I'm learning to live in the moment of the journey. Thank you, Justin.
That's awesome. Well, you commented about you got to believe it yourself. That's definitely true. But sometimes we got to bring people around us that see things we can't see. And I always think about the story in the New Testament of where these guys, brought this lame man to Jesus, and they tore a hole in the roof and lowered him down there to get him to Jesus. And I'm like, I want to have friends like that around me, that when I am at the bottom and I can't even, I'm so beat up, I'm so torn down, I'm so struggling that I can't even get myself to Jesus, but they'll get me to Jesus, or they'll see what I can't see. And so, there's been key people like that in my life through the years, and still have those kind of people in my life. And I try to make sure that I keep people that are that way in my life, because there's enough other people in the world. We won't
Yeah.
talk about them,
Yeah.
but you need those people, that'll see what maybe you can't see, or what maybe you've forgotten or used to believe and can't believe, struggle to believe now.
And I realize now, and I'll go ahead and say this because I'm old enough to say it now, and I can laugh about it. There were moments where I was nudged by you, and I was too stubborn to realize my own stupidity. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm a stupid person. I'm saying the old cliche that Forrest Gump said, stupid is as stupid does. When somebody is trying to push you in the right direction and they are giving you a nugget of information that's going to help you, and you turn on them, and the fact that they stay with you, even though you turn on them, you know where I'm going.
I don't know how much I argued with you about driving. Oh Lordy. I was
Yeah,
like, doggone it, come on, DJ. You can do this. Come on, come on.
yeah.
We argued, we argued, we argued, we argued. So
It, it,
yeah.
it just goes to show, I've known you since I was 22 years old, and I look at where we are now and those moments, where you came down to visit. I cherish those moments because it's powerful now, because it's not just about where are you going. It's about, man, how did you get to? When did you get to? Because I've had that moment of, how in the world did I get here? It's and that is a big moment when you realize what God has done for you and the blessings that He's given you. You're going, I didn't expect this. I mean, this is it. I mean, I wasn't expecting this show to go where it went. I mean, I knew what I was going to ask you, but again, that's what makes it a conversation. That's why I don't have scheduled questions on the cue card going, "What's your favorite color?" Because it's not about that. There's passion in this. Somebody's going to watch this and go, you know what? I can get that job. I can get that car. I can go to the next step toward the right direction, because the journey starts. And I love this, Brian. I want to make sure that you kind of comment on this. The journey starts with that first step, and you had a vision or a dream that you wanted, and it kept going and kept growing and kept building, and there were many things in there, and like you said, God's going to weed out what we don't need. But I do want to mention this. You said something about you need people in your life that see what you don't see. The lady that I work with Kelly's Choice and Let Go Radio and all of this, there were times where she would tell me things and I would go, are you crazy? Like, I didn't see it. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm comfortable doing this. She said, I want you to move. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And it became suggestion, and then it grew. So when you have people in your life that are nudging you in the right direction or helping you get to where you want to go, don't shun them. Don't push them away. Take a second and evaluate where you are and look at everybody has great potential, but if you don't use the right soil, the right seed, the water, the sunshine, if you don't use what God gives you, that's on you. You have to see it. And Brian, if you want to comment on that, I want to just get your kind of opinion, because I think a lot of people, they see people trying to help them and they think they're against them, but they're not.
I mean, all of us, have blind spots and things that we don't see, and when people try to help us with that, we can push back on it. The thing I try to keep into account is, who's saying it. So I have people in my life that I know that if whatever they tell me, I'd better listen to, because of their character and who they are and the fact that they know me and their relationship with me. And so I kind of have a default rule that, I mean, a good example, Victoria is one of those things, or one of those relationships, one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that Victoria challenges me on, I've made a predisposed choice to listen to. Now, sometimes I might react in the moment. We're not perfect for sure. But when it all settles down, I have to be like, okay, she knows me. She cares about me. She loves me. She's a wise woman. And I need to really think about what she just said. Is there truth in it or not? And so some of that is, I guess, how you kind of expose those things in your life. But yeah, it is easy to push out. Now, look, if some Joe that I ain't never met, watches this video and reaches out and says, well, you're just a bunch of arrogant, blah, 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 I'm going to hit the delete button, because you don't know me. You don't know enough about me or whatever to tell that might be true, might not be true. But I choose who I let into my life to challenge me. It's not that I don't let people challenge me, but I look for the people that have earned the right to do that. And so that's part of how I kind of diffuse the internal resistance to being challenged and being confronted is that I've made a choice to allow certain people to do it.
Well, I've got 3 questions before the show ends. We got about 10 minutes, and I
Okay.
want to ask you these 3 questions. What do you think the hardest part of Brian's journey is right now? What is the hardest and most difficult part that you're dealing with at this present time?
At this present time is, we go through seasons where we maybe struggle and we don't have opportunity. Once we start getting momentum, then we start having so much opportunity. It's what to say no to and what to say yes to. And that is really hard because you're not just saying no to bad things, you're saying no to good things. And when you're in those moments and in those seasons, I might go in and out of those seasons, but I'm in one of those seasons now. I've really got to know my core. I got to know what God created me a courageous, authentic builder. I need to be focused on what is along that core. And if it's not along that core, then it needs to be no, because there's just not enough of me to go around. Or if an opportunity, like there might be an opportunity our business could chase that would make more money, but then I wouldn't be available for my daughter's wedding in 2 months. I've got to be aware of those kinds of things. And so that's probably the biggest challenge that I'm having right now is is realizing that I need to say no to certain things. And then also that there's things that I've always done within our company and so forth that I don't have time to do anymore. And I've got to trust other people to do them. There's other team members. If I'm going to teach people, then I also got to let them do it. And I got to let them make mistakes and let them learn just like I did. And so those are probably the 2 biggest challenges I'm facing at the moment, is just making those adjustments myself.
Man, wow. That's well said. Thank you for answering that. The other question I have, and I ask this one a lot, but I want to ask this one because I want our viewers to hear this. If you had a chance to go back and talk to your younger self, if you could talk to the Brian of 10 or 15 or even 20 years ago, what would you say to the Brian of that time? What would your message be to your younger self?
Sit down, shut up, and listen more.
Oh man.
There's just a whole lot of things that'll go a whole lot better if you do that. Like everybody listening here knows I can get fired up and I can talk, and I can dominate a room. But some of the most valuable things I've been a part of is when I don't dominate the room and when I listen and when I see what other people have to contribute, when I let other people contribute. And so I spent a lot of years not doing that. And so I don't know. That's the first thing that came to mind. There's probably other things, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
Okay. There are 2 small things left, if you don't mind, and if you would like to. If not, that's fine. Can you share how people can get involved or get in touch with you or get in touch with Bear Creek to build that team? Would you just share a little bit of that information of how to get involved there?
Yeah, so I am not personally on social media near as much as I once was because I like to build stuff. and that happens in the real world and doesn't happen on a computer. And so I've gotten closer to my core in that area. So you can find me on Facebook. You can message me there. I may or may not see it. I have an Instagram account, but I don't ever use it. But if you want to see what Bear Creek is doing, you can bearcreek.co. You can get to our website where we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram. You can see what we're going. You can message us through there. All of our contact information is in those places. If you'd like to learn more about what we're doing, I'm always happy to chat and so forth. But yeah, if you we got an office phone number on there. If you call there and you'll probably get Leslie or a voicemail. Just say, hey, heard Brian on this podcast, and he said to reach out. And so you can just leave your name and number and a message, and it may take me a little bit, but I'll get back with you.
One
He
thing
knows that sometimes it takes me a couple of days to get back to him, but I can't say I always have, because there's been some times I forgot. But relationships are important to me.
One thing I can say about this man sitting right here, 95% of the time, he's going to get back to you. It may take him some time because he is busy. And sometimes he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and I got to go roll it to him, but that's okay. I do want to say this, guys that are listening out there, before I share my information and before we end the show.
Hey, can I throw something else in here?
Oh, sure.
So, one other piece of my journey that we did not talk about was Victoria, my wife, battled clinical depression, anxiety, and so forth. And that was a big part of our journey. And many others who may be listening maybe have battled that same thing. And she wrote a book to help people just practically through that based on some of what God did with her. And it's called Daring to Fight. You can find it at victoriamenninger.com, daringtofight.net, or something like that. But the easiest thing, just go to Amazon and type in Daring to Fight, and that book will come up. And I know that in any group, there's people listening that need that message. And so I just wanted to get that in there before we wrapped it.
Well, I'm going to work on having Brian and Victoria or Miss Tori on together, because those two, you can't not cry when they're on. I've held back tears in this one because just I know how effective Brian is as an individual, and this needs to be shared because this is powerful, and this talks a lot about what people are concerned with. So many people are afraid to take that first step, and sometimes you have to do it in fear, like we've talked about before. You've got to conquer it, whether it's driving, whether it's building, whether it's your first job, your first car, your first show. Sometimes you got to do it in fear anyway and succeed, because you are powerful. God doesn't make mistakes. He makes miracles, and you are that miracle. So please, please, please share this show. Guys, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can reach me on YouTube at My CP Does Not Define Me. You can reach me on YouTube at Worth the Wait Cooking with DJ Carter and Chairmaster Games. Instagram is My CP Does Not Define Me. Twitter, My CP Does Not Define Me at Minion Sports. My blog, CarterDJ85 at Wix.com. I'm everywhere, but mostly it's My CP Does Not Define Me. As we end the show today, thank y'all so much for tuning in and listening. I'm going to have Brian put all of the Bear Creek information in the comments once we're done here. Brian, stay with me because we're going to end the show, but you'll still be here for just a minute. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and to those listening on www.letgoradio.net, if you're looking for an opportunity, do me a favor. Go to that Bear Creek website, search the like page on Facebook. It is awesome. There's videos and all sorts of things that you can look at. You can meet the team. There's different areas that you can get into. It is a great, great organization. And if you have faith the size of the mustard seed, you can move those mountains. So get out there, move those mountains, and get it done. We will see you next Wednesday at 2 p.m. for episode 57 of My CP Does Not Define Me. If you can't be good, be bad, but be good at it. We'll see you next week. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this week's episode of My CP Does Not Define Me. But don't worry, you can catch us again next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on www.letgoradio.net and on Facebook and YouTube at My CP Does Not Define Me. Remember, I'm your host, D to the J with the roll away. And if you can't be good, be bad. But be good at it. We'll see you next week.